In Luke's gospel, Lazarus is described as being extremely poor. Now, this is not the Lazarus that was the brother of Martha and Mary, who Jesus raised from the dead. This is a different one who sits at the gate of a very wealthy man who has a luxurious lifestyle. While in the original gospel story, he is unnamed, in the 4th century, Jerome gave him the name of Dives, in accord with Latin for riches. Both Dives and Lazarus die and are pictured in the afterlife. Lazarus resting with Abraham, and Dives in the torments of hell. He asks Abraham for assistance, but is denied. And finally he says, well, at least send Lazarus to my brothers, my 5 brothers, so that they might not end up where I am. And Abraham says, they won't even believe when someone comes back from the dead. They won't repent. What's important to note is this was probably written around 80 AD, and one had already come back from the dead, Jesus. And people were not repenting. They were not listening. And secondly, Dives is not condemned for being rich. He's condemned for paying no attention to the poor. He was not sensitive to the man who was at his gate every day. Frankly, he just didn't care. Dives did not kick Lazarus each time he passed by. He did not yell obscenities at him. The sin was that he ignored him. At times, the gospel stories might be a little difficult to understand. It may be far removed from everyday life, but not this one. Dives and Lazarus are quite clear. We need to look at ourselves. No one here is probably as poor as Lazarus, and maybe none of us is as well off as Dives, but we may suffer from the same sin of Dives. We might tend to ignore those who need our support. And this is true of government at various levels, and it's true of individuals as well. As a society, we sometimes just don't care, or so it seems. And for us, it's not a political question, it really is a gospel imperative. Whatever you do to the least, you do to me. Lazarus is present today in the obvious person of the homeless and the destitute. But he's also present in the person we pass by with indifference each day, at school or at work. He's present in the person who lives in our neighborhood who is so terribly lonely and just needs our time. Each of us can identify with Dives. To one degree or another, we are rich. Even the poorest person on Cape Cod is well off in comparison to so much of the third world. Just take a look at the pictures of the refugee camps in Lebanon and Jordan, filled with refugees from Syria, and you'll see real poverty, real suffering. Over 1 million people have been displaced. Pope Francis is constantly challenging us to serve the poor who are on what he calls the edges of life. The first step in caring is seeing. Who is it that we are near every day and fail to see? Who is in need of our time, our concern, our care, our love, our support? He or she is there. We only need to open our eyes and see.